You have not?
It's on the expenditures by function, general fund, expenditure by function, all funds, and expenditures by, you gotta be kidding.
Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, moving down to the approval of the consent agenda, the minutes of the May 2nd regular board meeting, June bills totaling $414,941.86, and the financial reports that you had in your packet that accompanied those bills.
I move we accept.
It's been moved by Mr. Shepherd. Are there any other questions or discussions, or a second?
I could not find my second page. I found it now. Any additions?
Well, we're still on the consent agenda, but we'll
Consent.
move down. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
You're fine. Which is just the minutes from the prior meeting, the June bills, and the financials that accompanied those.
Got it. Yeah, my pages were sticking together.
Yes, sir.
No, I'll second.
Jack has a question, maybe?
The June bills that we paid, we didn't get a copy, or I didn't get a copy of, but last month, since we moved our meetings to the second Tuesday, we don't get a complete month, but we had not looked at May's bills, May's payments, and I got a copy of May's payments today, which we didn't look at last month. So we're gonna be looking at a month behind each month.
Yes, sir, and then in completion,
In
yes, sir.
totality, yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I noticed in going through them was there were two, and that's a very small thing, because month after month after month, it never happens. But there were two charges to the credit card that had no receipt, and that was highly unusual, because we do an excellent job on that. But
Yeah.
Anyway, I went through May's, and I didn't see anything that was,
Yeah, and I believe, I'm speculating a little bit, but I believe there was someone with a credit card that was on vacation, and when it was time to collect all the paperwork, they weren't here to get it, is I think why that happened. But I'm gonna take note and follow up that we did get it, because I hadn't thought about that.
but like I said, month after month after month, we get all the receipts, so that was just an unusual item to see. But anyway, that I want to tell you that.
Ready for a second?
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
I believe there's a second from Dr. Meyer. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the consent agenda, and also noting the fact that we'll be looking at things a little bit more in arrears because of our time in the month. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Or abstaining?
I appreciated the clarification from Jack.
Yes.
Thank you, Jack.
Next, we'll be looking for the adoption of the agenda for the remainder of the meeting, and it will be as presented. There are no additions.
Now you got two.
All right, let's keep this moving. I move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the agenda as printed and before you, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Or abstaining? Thank you. Next, we're going to go to public comments, and we will wait a couple seconds here, allow time for that.
I used to hum the Jeopardy theme song in my head in classes. What did you just think?
Got a huge public out there tonight.
I see no motion from the loyal following in the audience tonight, so we will move on past public comments and move down to reports. First, we'll have Mr. Pettit, Superintendent. Oh, you got that one?
Well, good evening tonight. I don't have a long report, but kind of a fun one that comes each year, as June is when public school entities close out their fiscal year. So I have some recaps, kind of a look at the school year that we're concluding. And it's really interesting to see all the work that we've done in the 11 months that we've worked together now. And so that'll be part of this. And then just a few housekeeping matters, and I'll certainly stop, take any questions as I go through these. But love my quotes, of course, as an old social studies teacher. I find these two slightly in conflict with one another intentionally. But it is not possible to go forward while looking back. This year has certainly not been a year of looking back and talking too much about what and why happened in the past necessarily, but really talking about where are we going, why do we want to go there, and how are we going to get there. And I do think that it's really important this time of year to look, in order to look ahead and be successful, we've got to really stop and look back a little bit. And that's what June is to me each year in my time as an administrator, is to stop and do just that. So we're going to have a little bit of data tonight, and I call this the fun data. Not everyone would agree with me, but I'm going to ease into that. Just a few quick housekeeping matters for the last month to tell you about. First, we had our first surplus auction of the year. Certainly not the first one ever, but the first one of the year. And we did that in the silent bid format that we haven't before. All of this surplus auction was excess furniture that we inherited with the purchase of the Butterfield campus. I would say not scientifically at all, but at least about 75% of that furniture and surplus was sold, which has just pretty much cleared the way to have the actual surplus sale or sales later this summer from district stuff that we had already owned. So I do anticipate there will be more surplus auctions, definitely one in August, and potentially we may have another one just at the Career Center because there's such a large amount of surplus there, and it would be easier to just have it at that location than move it. And I think it'll draw two different crowds. One's going to be largely furniture, one's going to be automotive parts and tools. So that went well. It grossed $7,100. And that was, like I said, that was all furniture that just came with the building that we didn't have a use for. And we repurposed a lot of furniture as well. Summer school is getting down to its final days. It's into the single digits. It's our first year utilizing this Summer Journeys program, which is very much a STEM-based model, very hands-on. We still have K through 12, 866 students in summer school right now. That was as of Friday last week. So a really large number. Our goal was 900. We were very close to hitting that, and that was a pretty lofty goal for our first year. 7 days left. The program has definitely been a hit with the younger students. I can say for my students at home, my two children who are in the summer school program, they really enjoyed it. There's been a lot of learning with it. Now, my son Henry actually finished it up a little bit early. I'll tell a story on myself, but we've got a pretty low tolerance for misbehavior, and unfortunately, my kindergartner, he was one of the fallen soldiers, I'm afraid, along the way, which has been sad for his mom, but a great learning lesson for him because there was so much to him, $1 million, but it was a $100 gift card at the end. We have had a pretty rigorous expectation of student behavior, but it's really been positive. The students have had fun, and that's a lot of little kiddos. We had about 500 elementary kids, K-5, the first day of summer school. That's a lot of little kiddos to bring into a big high school building and to ask them to acclimate to that, and they've done a really great job. We did a pre-test, and we're going to do a post-test to measure the growth of learning, and the kids want to be there. So I share that story because I know some of our parents have been like, gosh, you guys don't allow very many second chances in summer school, and I just want to say, hey, even when it's the superintendent's kiddo, that's true. We got a pretty high expectation, and we hold ourselves to the same standard. We also sent out a survey to the parents, so we're going to have data for you to say how much academic growth was there in the program for the students who started and finished, and what was the parent feedback about the program. I'll have all of that for you, hopefully in July, definitely in August. what is the focus in summer school? In the secondary level, it's been math, science, and English instruction. It's going on in person, which is really nice to say after years of COVID. And lots of students have been taking advantage of that, some of them to catch up on credits, some of them to get ahead in credits for goals that they have in their upper level years of high school. Everything else I think I said there. Any questions about any of that before I really get into my year at a glance? District fiscal year, FY at a glance, district fiscal year at a glance. I've got 2 slides of this. This is all the work that this Board of Education has done, that the administrative team has done, that the teachers have done, that our maintenance and custodians have done. And it's an impressive amount of work that a lot of people are responsible for collectively. I won't read all of those, but I'm going to hit a few highlights. New handbooks. Doesn't seem like a lot of gusts should go into that, but it's about 7 months worth of work for the handbooks you have before you tonight to approve. Wrapping up a fire and all the dollars that are involved with it, especially, you know, considering because of COVID and the fire itself, we had to track down a lot of money. All of that is concluded. The governance plan, of course, you approved that just prior to July 1 last year. We've got the new CSIP, which you approved last year, and we've got building improvement plans specific to each building. All these things were a large body of work, and they're not just a document that sits on a shelf. They're guiding documents that we reflected on each month. Additionally, some really big things that we have going on, you can see there. We now have an early childhood center. We jumped headfirst into a new summer school program. When we come back in the fall, we'll have a new student information system that takes our attendance, our lunch count. That wasn't something we did by choice. Our other one was going offline and we had to switch. The new teacher evaluation system we did choose to do, that's a big one. And I would be remiss not to say our first successful levy in 49 years. That took not only just all the people in the district and on the board, but our community. So a lot of great things going on.
49 years.
All of the building principals submitted reports for the month of June to do the same thing I just did at the district level within their building and to summarize what's going on there. I'm going to ask you to read the right side of that as opposed to me reading it to you. What I did here was focus on some of the highlights that I thought were interesting for the public and the board to hear tonight. But I basically went through and disaggregated all the building data where they looked at their entire year. And I have a focus here on district discipline, which is obviously not one of the most positive things we want to talk about, but it's something that's important to address. When we look at the district as a whole, there were 1,896 incidents that were recorded, which tends to mean it's a bigger incident as opposed to just a small talking to, if you will, as my grandma would have called it. When you look at the number of days in the school calendar, for next year we have 160 student days. I break this down, assuming that our VOTEC director isn't in this total count of principals, since he does a lot more than just principal, but he directs in that building. With 12 regular conventional principals, that breaks down to some interesting statistics. For the TLC program, that means 25 students had 300 incidents. That's the equivalent of 2 incidents per day for one principal. And it doesn't work out quite that way, just on average. BMS was our other area of interesting discipline to look at. You've got 3 principals in that building, 2 assistants and 1 head principal. 700 some odd students in that building. And if you break down their discipline incidents, you have 2.5 incidents per day per principal. They went a step further, breaking theirs down. They had 24 students who had more than 10 incidents each, or 240 incidents for those 10 students. Some takeaways. That means 72% of the district's discipline was at BMS and TLC. Forgive me, I'm still having my allergies really bad this summer. So we're relocating the TLC program. And I think when you look at that data, and the community, asks a lot of questions, especially about that TLC, we're going to now call it the alternative school program. Why are you doing that? That's a very taxing ask of one principal. The way we're splitting that now, you're going to have available 6 secondary principals to help with that. You're also going to have an elementary focus and a secondary focus. Why do we have those new handbooks? As the public gets to know those in the fall, they're going to see that they're very well aligned, and they may feel that, gosh, some of this is fairly rigid compared to what we had in the past. And it all really comes back to when we start looking at discipline like that and spending our time and attention on discipline, it's a distraction from what we really do in public education, which is to educate, to teach, and to learn. So they're going to be well aligned. They are going to be slightly more rigid. Our expectations are going to be higher, but our focus is going to continue to remain on this data in the year ahead. And I think that we're getting on the right path to just say, you know, we probably need to really make some changes if that's what we have going on in certain places. We need to give them supports. Those principals are doing a great job in those locations. But if we want them to stay and to keep them, we got to give them some more supports. And I think that's what we're starting to do. Any questions about that? Okay, so just some quick highlights. And I've got 2 quick slides of this, but I won't read all of this either. There's tons of good things going on. But in short, we are seeing good things happen. BMS, it's been years since they had their floors waxed. That's awesome. That's going to happen this summer. Teachers are undergoing all these letters trainings. They're working really hard. We're giving them a stipend as best we're able to show them our appreciation. And it is really rigorous, really relevant in a curriculum that's going to really improve teaching and learning. I could go on and on about iReady and all the things we're doing with academics. But I don't want to keep you here all night. Principals evaluations, we're working on really tying how do we evaluate people based on how do students perform. We're really doubling down on that. TLC had some great successes getting students back on academic track. So despite, yes, they had a lot of discipline, but they had a lot of successes too. We had a lot of things going right, and the people working there had a huge heart, doing a great job. We're going to just double down on that and again, give them more resources. The Career Center, I'm really proud of them for this. They had more interest in their programs for enrollment than we have instructors to meet or space. They're doing a great job. People know that their programs are great. And in the midst of all of that programming, they also are managing over $400,000 in grants that they're acquiring for the Career Center. So wonderful things going on there. And BMS, they had a lot of severe incidents decline, though they had an overall number of discipline incidents increase. I really think that's because we added an extra administrator and we're focusing on less tolerance, less distractions, and getting back to teaching and learning. So every building, every principal, whether I've specifically mentioned them, they're in the highlights. Great things are going on in every building, and I'm really proud of all of our administration. So some really quick conclusions. This is my next to last slide. It really is my last slide. With that many things that I couldn't even read them all for the sake of time and boredom, there's obviously no silver bullet. All the things we're doing are not perfect. Some of the things we think we've done for this fall are not going to work like we thought. We're going to have to pivot, adjust, recalculate. And ideally, we probably could have taken on a few less things at once. I acknowledge that reality because nothing's ever perfect, but despite having taken on a lot, I really think that there's a lot of good that's going to come of it. And it's important, I think, as a board, as a group of administrators, for us to just say, hey, we're not afraid to fail. We're going to look at data. We're going to say, hey, 72% of discipline in these 2 areas, we're going to do something different, or we're going to burn out good people. And as we do something different, we might find out, well, that was good intention, but it didn't work, and we're going to change and adjust again. And so my approach as your superintendent is that I'm just going to keep bringing this to you and saying, just like this quote says, unity is strength. When there's teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. I think we've done a lot of great things this year, and I mention this just to say I have no doubt that we've made some mistakes in our planning. We're going to have to pivot it and adjust as we go into all these new endeavors next year. But just like the folks in that rowboat on the picture on the left, as long as we know where we're going, why we're going there, and we're all rowing in the same direction, there's nothing that says we can't pivot again and adjust. So that is our fiscal year at a glance. If you have no questions, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. Mr. Rinke.
Okay, good evening. I do not have a long report at all tonight, so I'll just jump into it. I just got a couple things to touch, and then I have a couple action items I want to go over before we get to that agenda. So, some different things, just an update on the Butterfield Early Childhood Center. All the work is pretty much complete in there, all the tiles done, a lot of the waxing is done, the baseboards are in. There's some waxing that we have to do in some of the other parts of that did not get retiled. We're going to work on that this week, so things have come along very well there. And then hopefully by the beginning of next week, sometime in the next week, we'll actually be moving all the furniture in. So it's looking pretty good. So pretty happy on how that came around. The sidewalk from the high school to the alternative school, that is put in. Just a little bit of dirt work to finish that up, so that's a good thing to get done. The resealing of the Butterfield parking lot is pretty much done. They're going to work, they're probably still working on it right now, into the rest of the week, just finishing off the striping and the lines. So it looks really nice. We have our moving going on throughout the district. A lot of moving going on. That is going well. Mr. Woodring is running the moving crew. He's doing a fantastic job. Southeast, everything's pretty much out of Southeast. And then everything, I think, pretty much is moved in Benton. And so we're right on schedule with what we need to be doing. A couple other things I don't have on here. Our painting crew, they're working hard, freshening up a lot of stuff in the district. And then our custodians have been working hard and getting a lot of the floors resealed and re-waxed. So things are going pretty well. A couple other things that I have here that is an action item we wanted to get in this year's budget that we think we probably should get done. The first one will be the early childhood. They go into the new early childhood, some cubby. We got some bids on that. And then looking at putting some carpet in the wings at Butterfields for the social work team and the PAT wing. So these are the bids, how they came back, and this is going to be my recommendation. So the first one, this is for the carpet bids. We're doing some offices and some hallways in there to freshen that up. Some of the carpet in those areas needs to be replaced, just in having the public in there. So we received 2 bids back to put some carpet tiles in, and this also includes the cove base once we get everything put in. So it's the tearing out, the prep work, the installation of the carpet, and then the cove base. For JC Flooring and More out of Marshall, they were $11,369.77. And the floor guys for this bid was $14,942. So I'm going to recommend we go with JC Flooring and More out of Marshall. They were the lowest bid. It was the same material they both bid on. So that's what I'll recommend when we get to that part. And then for cubbies, so the early childhood center, we want to put some cubbies down the hallways for the kids to store their stuff when they come in and out. Of course, furniture is expensive. Anything you buy nowadays. We got 3 bids from there. Walmart.com for $7,199.82. School Specialty, $9,651.78. Worthington Direct for $9,395.10. And we are going to need 18 of these, and these are the total of all 18. I'm going to recommend the ones from School Specialty. I realize they're the most expensive, and this is the reason I'm going to recommend those. If you look at the styles in your board packet, School Specialty and Walmart has a different style with 3 different layers, so it's more functional. And then also the Walmart ones, they do not come assembled, so we would have to spend the time getting those and then assembling those, and that's going to take some time. So if we just go with School Specialty, those come, we can set them up, and then we'd be good to go. So that's what I'm going to recommend on those. Now the motion you'll do tonight is to not exceed, if the board decides to go with School Specialty, and we will not exceed $9,651.78, because possibly we do not have to buy all 18. we're still gonna go through and got some measuring to do, and there's a possibility we can maybe find a couple more, we don't have to buy all of them. So that's how that motion will be worded. So those are the two things I have tonight. Does anybody have any questions?
It's my understanding, David, that laying that carpet stuff there is grant money.
Yes, sorry, Jack, I should have said that, I apologize. So the carpet will come out of, the grant monies, which is the art funds.
Yeah.
And then we also, for the cubbies, we can't cover it all with, some early childhood money, but there will be, probably around $2,000 that we could probably get on that grant funding.
Does the Worthington doesn't come in and put them together either?
Well, there it comes together, Jack, but there's not really the style we're looking for, so those are kind of a two-layer. If you look in the,
When he's saying two-layer, they're actually, there was a cubby on the top and then a larger cubby. The school specialty ones actually have a third or a bottom cubby with them as well. So the term layer might miss some of us, but it's the cubby design. I actually asked earlier, what was the functionality and what did we actually need in the rooms? And that's where he recommended the school
One of them looked
specialty
like it'd be
to.
hard to hang a coat up.
Yes, by shape.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So these prices on the bid are inclusive of everything, right?
Well,
Shipping and handling,
shipping is, I don't think shipping's included. So
freight.
we would have to get
anything like
shipping.
that. So,
done.
so it's not gonna be not to exceed 9 and some. It would be not
would
to
have to
exceed
be
9
shipping.
and some and plus. So I was just looking back at the door locks, and the bid on that. And I had missed that there was an installation fee on the bid there. So I'm a little bit more keen at looking at some of the details nowadays,
I
right?
understand.
So how do you want us to word that? Do you have any idea of what the freight cost is gonna be?
Not off the top of my head, I'm gonna have to go back and, when we order them, that's when I find that out.
What if it's like an eye-watering amount? What's the ceiling on the bid, or on the grant? I mean?
On the, so we have the funds in the grant, okay? That grant is not, there's, what, 70 some, I think?
74, 76.
$74,000.
So we're not bumping up against that.
Right, we're not bumping up against the grant, so I don't have the shipping off the top of my head. I can get that for you, but,
It's usually a matter of hundreds of dollars, not
yeah, I
thousands of
mean,
dollars.
I don't think it's gonna be over $500-600,
Okay,
is what I'm saying.
lovely.
I would put when we do the motion, I would just say not to exceed the $9,000 plus shipping and handling. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, that's all I have,
That's
thank
it?
you.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification as well on the bid.
good job.
There is no old business before this board, but there is a bunch of new business before
Mine
this
too.
board. So, moving to the second page, the first thing that we'll be speaking about is the approval of the fiscal year budget as recommended for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. And everyone received that packet and information. If there's any questions about that?
A few highlights that might answer any questions you do have. So that's a fairly large document, I know. I don't know how similar it is to what you've been accustomed to in the past or not, but the FY24 budget anticipates revenues of $31,862,000, expenditures of $32,989,000, and that means we will deficit spend in this proposed budget $1,127,000 for our budget year ahead. What we anticipate with that budget is an ending reserve for this year, which ends at the end of this month, FY23. I believe we'll end this year somewhere around 29.31%, and I believe we will end the budget year you're approving around 22.6% with the deficit
That's what I
spend.
was looking for.
As we know from these last couple of months, I had been presenting on all of the layers of this budget. The financial cliff, as we've been referring to it, that's going to be coming the way of all public schools post-COVID funding. That anticipated financial cliff is part of what you're starting to experience, and it will come to full fruition by 2025. So next year's budget, we'll be talking about more deficit spending or a change in trajectory through the attrition from these buildings closing, because if we don't change that trajectory, 2.3 million is the funding cliff I anticipate by 2025. So again, in short, I believe that this fiscal year of '23, ending in June, will be 29% reserve, and I believe by the end of the budget I'm asking you to approve tonight, we'll be at 22.6. Our goal is to stay above 20.
We know it's coming.
So that's where the deficit will be funded from reserves.
But at least it's there. We can spend it down if we have to.
That's what we talked about this morning.
Oh, you did? Okay.
My glasses on.
And
There
this
are
is
no
the
other-
budget packet that came together, that you put together with Carol Embry, right?
Yeah,
She had oversight over this?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that we did with the ESSER dollars and getting at all those numbers, they were very much vetted by her.
Hey, I trust Carol Embry.
Well, I'll move that we approve the budget as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there additional questions? All those in favor of approval of the budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or abstaining? Next, we're going to look to set the fiscal year budget, 2023 budget, at the same amount per accounting codes as the actuals for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. And that is just for the coding, which is given to us. We don't have a lot of leeway with that as well. So, seeking a motion?
Mr. Diggs, in the past, isn't this one that we've had like specific language around?
That would probably be more for the transfers. The accounting codes are
Gotcha.
just wherever we have to code things for, so DESI and every other accounting group can follow along on where we're spending money. So there's particular codes and areas that we have to put our accounting codes into. But as you go back into C and D, that's where you're going to talk about language. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yep, you read my mind.
I motion that we set the fiscal year '23 budget at the same amount per accounting code as the actuals for the '22-23 fiscal year.
It's been moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Now we're going to be looking at transfers. That is going to be for sufficiency from Fund 1 to set the teacher fund at no less than a zero balance. This will be so that we are able to pay teachers to close out the fiscal year.
And this isn't one where we're gonna have like specific language?
I think so.
So the specific language would be to transfer, as he stated, it's sufficient funds from 1 to set the teacher fund at no less than 0.
This year?
The exact numbers then will be, that allows us to basically close out the month without an extra meeting. And I vetted that through our auditors to see if they agree. They said that is very common with the schools they audit.
I move we transfer sufficient funds from Fund 1 to set the teacher fund at no less than 0.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Now moving down to D, transfer amount up to allowable transfer limit from Fund 1 to Fund 4. And I will let Mr. Pettit elaborate on that briefly as well.
Yeah, so there's an amount allowable to transfer from the general fund to your capital fund each year, and that's based on your final numbers and how you close out the month. With this motion, as with all of the other prior motions, it's just allowing us to close out the fiscal year and roll over to the new budget year, July 1st. We do this typically once a year, and then we use those dollars and we pay. It's not debt service, but basically we're making a payment on this Spainhauer project until 2030, and with that transferred money, we make that payment.
And our lease purchases, possibly, some people have heard that said through the community as well.
I move we transfer the amount up to the allowable transfer limit from Fund 1 to Fund 4.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to make this a once-a-year transfer that we're able to make from Fund 1 to Fund 4, our capital fund. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Next, we need to authorize payment of remaining fiscal year 2023 obligations to close out the fiscal year ending in June. This means that we will give latitude for the accounting purposes through the remainder of the month to close out any obligations that we have in order to move into July with a clean budget.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? And of course, we will have true numbers for this reflected in the upcoming meetings, so. Next, we need to ratify the surplus sale items, which were listed in Appendix A in your list, and the revenues thereof of around $7,100.
So moved.
Yep, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. The only question I have, I know there are a few items that were left over. What are we going to do with that?
They'll roll into the next surplus sale as well. And then if
Okay.
they're remaining after that, the empty trailers at Beaker Middle School being heated and cooled, we're gonna start utilizing that as surplus for the time being, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of ratification of the surplus sale items as listed in Appendix A and revenues, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Next, there were 4 real estate contracts within your packet.
When you get there, I have a question on one when you finish.
I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
The one that I was reading the contracts, and I thought Ashford mentioned the word exclusive on his.
So they, somewhere and somehow, they will all say exclusive, and they all have they also, though differently placed on 1 or 2 of them, they all have the same commission. But long and the short, all of them are going to be able to now bring buyers to the Board of
That's
Education.
what I was concerned about.
But you'll enter into an exclusive contract with only one at the end.
The guy that rings the buyer.
That's
All
right,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So if there's multiple buyers, that'll be something you all will be deciding prior to the next meeting, which one suits the deed restrictions best, and then we'll enter into that exclusive contract with one of those 4.
Okay.
All the realtors have bought us matching contracts as well.
Yeah.
For the most part, so looking to approve the real estate contracts as presented.
Yeah. I'll move it, we accept. Approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the contracts as proposed by the realtors who submitted, the 4 realtors who submitted, or agencies who submitted contracts to us. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Moving along, next we're going to look at the purchase of the carpet as Mr. Rinky outlined in his presentation. There were 2 bids that came in. J.C. Flooring and More came in at $11,369.77 at $32.11 per yard, and the floor guys were at $14,942 at $39.84 per yard. Both these bids used the same materials and have the same expectations of, as he said, complete removal and complete restoration or installation of new product as well as the cove basing. So,
I move we accept the bid from J.C.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to accept the low bid from J.C. Flooring and More at $11,369.77. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Next, there were, I believe, 6 different handbooks in our packet. My number may be off on that as I was reading through those, but for the 2023-2024 school year, it's very obvious that they have been gone through with rigor as I was reading through them, as well as alignment so that they are more equal across the district, for lack of a better term, or that it will be easier for our parents and students also to understand as they come to different buildings, move from the middle school to the high school, and how discipline actually works within each of those situations. So parents won't have to be as familiar with various avenues that are a little different from elementary to middle school to high school, but things should be a little bit more in line when you see those come out to you, as well as fonting and a lot of other things, which was greatly improved to match.
That was Harry.
Any comments?
No, that was Harry. I was giving Harry credit.
Oh,
Copy editing on that. I see 4 handbooks, BMS, elementary, MHS.
it is
and
probably
employees.
4. Yes, that is correct.
Just making sure.
I will retract the 6, as I said.
I think I had the final reading and a prior reading, so.
I probably read one book twice then that was unnecessary as I was reading through them, so. Heaven forbid I do extra reading, because that is the bane of my existence.
And I think there's always, well, I think Mr. Pettit and I talked about, there's always room for improvement. We just didn't have time this time around to add some additional things to it. I move we accept the handbooks as printed.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the handbooks for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Next, we will look for approval of the purchase of the cubbies for the Early Childhood Center. We had 3 bids that he went over. One was from Walmart, one was from School Specialty, and the other one is from Worthington, I believe. And I am not finding them as I'm flipping through here.
$9,651.78 plus freight.
Thank you.
Do you want it so you can read?
No, I'm fine. I'm flipping the wrong way in my book, so.
There you go.
As I said before, I'd ask a question about these because I know nothing about functionality, but I could tell they all look different. And so I asked which were the ones that we needed, and so that was where we arrived at the School Specialty, where you say an extra layer, but they actually provide 3 spaces per student for storage of their materials when they come to school, so shoes or as they need to, lunch boxes, backpacks, as well as a coat or other items. So the bid that was recommended was for, as Dr. Meyer said, $9,651.78, which will also have some additional freight and shipping on top of it. Also, looking at the Walmart bid, just for the idea of putting it together at 7,200 man-hours, labor, and broken parts, probably as we put that together, we will probably
We were just
cost us
talking
more
about
than
it, probably even out,
$2,000.
and then we don't have to put up with them.
Yes.
We'll still have to hang them, but, yeah. Okay. My questions have all been answered.
Looking for a motion?
I move we accept the bid from School Specialties for $9,600.
No, it's
$9,651.78. Yes, sir.
Plus shipping and handling.
Very good, Brad.
Yeah, I'll second.
I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Dr. Meyer. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Yeah,
Any opposed or abstaining? Next, there were some changes that were made to our policy on time off. I do not have that policy number in front of me. I know it's here in my packet as I'm trying to flip through there as quick as I possibly can. And Ms. Bruno's looking over.
I move we accept it.
It is the one that is not in my book, she said. The change in the
exactly this one?
bereavement policy would
that
be,
it's a first reading.
yes, just the change that's in there is for 3 bereavement days of immediate family members, and it outlines that
Within a year.
per school year.
Yeah.
All the way to the bottom.
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm probably the only one here that has lost a spouse. And I
You
think
go ahead.
that there should be an exception to that. If a teacher loses a spouse, 3 days is not enough bereavement for that partner to go through. I think a spousal death should be a 5-day bereavement. That's just my opinion. Because I've been down that road.
The only problem I see with that is if you go with spouse, then child, and then you start
No, that'd be the only exception I would make to it, would be for the spouse.
Okay.
I see the rationale. I mean, you're
Yeah,
gonna have a
there's-
lot of legal things to work through. I mean, when we lost my dad, that was, I mean, seeing my mom have to go through sudden issues, 5 days was just the beginning of it.
So if they had the 5 days, they could literally have a week before they came back.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a bit different with other members of the family. I mean, if you're that spouse, you have both those responsibilities and that emotional work to be doing at the same time. I see
It's a
the
good
logic,
point.
Jack. I would support that.
The other thing is, if you have additional comments and would like to send in, the one thing that I looked at as well was that this says 3 days per year. If you have the death
that's
of two immediate family members within the course of the year, if you use your 3 days in the beginning, then it doesn't guarantee you anything for the second. And so that puts you back at personal days, time at that point in time too. So so we wanted to look at a max, as Mr. Pettit earlier, of a max amount of days that someone could have for immediate family if we change from 3 to 6, saying if we would cover 2 deaths within a year. I just know as a supervisor of people and things, sometimes people have larger families, sometimes things happen. I don't have a large family such as that, so it probably wouldn't occur. But I know if you have multiple brothers and sisters, as Mr. Pettit, or other things that could come into play with this. So if you have additional comments, please send those in so that we can look over those as well and get a complete policy to bring back and make sure we're all arriving at the same point.
So the policy as it currently reads, it says 3 days. It didn't specify per event, per year, et cetera. So we were mostly addressing that piece of it. You know, a lot of things that we could think about and talk about. This is a first reading, as the agenda states, so we don't need to decide until July, but one compromise might be, as opposed to designating particular members of the family, might be something for the board and the public comments to think about, is that you say per year, but increase it to 5 overall. From a tracking standpoint, bookkeeping standpoint of it, it gives them more days as we limit and designate that it is per year, not necessarily per incident. The way the bereavement then works is it is at a cost to the district. However, it does not charge their personal leave or sick leave or anything like that. It preserves that. So they're also, in extenuating circumstances, allowed to have additional leave, just charging their days. So that would be something to think about, that we take it from 3 to 5 days per year and not designate for whom or for what, just that it be for a death in the family. But all to just think about, we can have conversations and decide in July.
I move we table till July and we look at it.
Oh, you don't need to.
It's a reading, but please send your
it's a first
comments
reading.
and
Oh,
try to get
yeah,
those
yeah.
in maybe in the next week so that we can get something put back out to everyone by the end of the month, so that we'll have time to kind of
Okay.
toss it around and bring it back as we need to, so. There's also a first reading on liquidated damages and the outline of financial side of certificates of participation, of which I had no comments that I should need to make on those two. I just had a comment about the first policy.
Okay.
If anyone has anything else they'd like to say about the last two, feel free. Hearing none,
Motion to go to executive session?
pursuant to legal action, causes of action or litigations, lease, purchase, or sale of real estate, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees, not class, and specifications for competitive bidding until approved or published.
Second.
Harry,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
we will now move to closed session. Thank you.
We'll move to closed session.